On Monday, we gave a little PSA about Michigan football recruiting, but let's talk about some actual Michigan football recruiting, where Michigan stands with a bunch of different things, and we've got to talk about Michigan basketball. When was the last time I said that? Wolverines come out and look incredible in Dusty May's season and career debut as a Wolverines coach. We got to talk about that. We're going to do both on this episode of Locked On Wolverines.
You are Locked On Wolverines, your daily podcast on the Michigan Wolverines, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Election Day. I voted, although not today. I saved the sticker. I voted the morning early voting opened in Michigan. Nonetheless, happy Tuesday. We're back and doing it. Locked On Wolverines podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. I'm your man on the ground, Isaiah Lowell, publisher of Wolverines Wire through USA Today Sports Media Group. And I want to talk some Michigan recruiting because I've had some really good conversations over the course of the last few days to kind of get to the bottom of a few different recruitments. So I wanted to touch on some guys. Now, there's some guys that I do expect to be in the class. It should be no surprise. They are crystal balled by multiple people. But Elijah Dotson's one that I'm waiting on. Jamar Browder, I have pre-writes for both of those. Just full disclosure. You know, I don't have a crystal ball anymore. I haven't been at 24/7 Sports since 2018. So I can just kind of tell you, I think that those guys are probably going to end up in the class enough where I've written my my pre-writes. The Elijah Dotson one, having talked to some people kind of around, like he provides a lot that maybe doesn't get talked about because he is teammates with Bryce Underwood. He is pivotal to the Bryce Underwood commitment, but he is a very, very good player in his own right and has a lot that he can absolutely bring to the table. Think of him as like a better version of like Makari Page is what I would say as far as him. Jamar Browder is a guy that's 6'4". He gives you that the size that you're looking for at wide receiver. Obviously, like it's not going to affect the fact that they're still trying to get into the Derek Meadows of it all, which obviously is one of the conversations I had tells me that Derek Meadows is not contingent on Bryce Underwood, but at least having a strong quarterback candidate. And but obviously, if they get Bryce Underwood, then they get Derek Meadows. Okay, so that is part of it. But from all accounts, I think everything went really well there. The name that I'm most excited about right now is Nathaniel Owusu-Boateng. I think Michigan knocked it out of the park with him. I haven't actually talked to him about it, but just kind of reading the tea leaves of some of these people that are have talked to him. I mean, I shouldn't say I haven't talked to him about talked to him. I haven't talked to him about it. I did exchange messages with him, but I felt like at this point, like, okay, we've talked a lot. I've seen what other people are saying. I don't need to get another on the record interview with him. But what I like that Michigan is doing is it's been a full court press, and they're really letting him know how much he is wanted. He is the top linebacker target for the Wolverines, and that's been the case for some time. He is a character fit for Michigan, and obviously he's got a couple guys that are recruiting him. I think one of the cool things, though, is every time he has been on campus, he has pushed back his departure time. He's really, really enjoyed it. And the fact that he came for 2 unofficial visits during the season. And yeah, he'll still get to some of these other schools and everything that are on his list. I think that Michigan really, it feels like they are in the prime position for him. Now, some of these other schools, Colorado, Texas, Notre Dame, can all still make moves. But I will say I'm a lot less nervous about that recruitment than I was maybe like 2 months ago. And I think that Michigan's in an absolutely amazing spot. 4-star cornerback Grayson Littleton. He is you got the crystal ball during his visit before the game. And I think that if he does end up in the class, that's going to take some time to get that figured out. Right. Just because he's still going to take his visits. He's going to go to Texas, I think is where it was. And Clemson's still kind of lurking there. But I think that Michigan's in a very good spot there. It's kind of an amazing defensive back class because you have to keep in mind, Alex Graham also visited his official visit. He's been committed to Colorado for a while. To me, that's just kind of a question if Michigan pushes. It feels like he would end up in the class. But I mean, they've already got Ivan Taylor. They're still holding on to dear life for Ivan Taylor. They got Kanoa Winston. They got Jaden Sanders and Shamari Earls. And then you add in Elijah Dotson, Grayson Littleton, potentially Brandon Finney, who they're still pushing for, potentially great, Andrew Alex Graham rather. It's now here's the thing. I mean, yeah, they could take 8 defensive backs, and they kind of need that right now because it's already kind of depleted, and we've learned that this year, and it's becoming more depleted. And it's funny how expectations versus what happens on the field, how things kind of change, right? Injuries and all of those things obviously affect it all too. But and it was one of those things. I was talking to Adam Rittenberg, ESPN, before the Illinois game, and we were, we both thought that Michigan was going to win that game, but it was one of those things where, like I said, like it's isn't it just funny, like not just with Michigan, but just in general, like how every year we go into a season and we think we have a pretty good beat on who's going to be good, who's not going to be good, what's going to be the best team, what's not going to be the best team. Halfway through the season, you're like, nope, I was wrong. This is what it is. And then even by the end of the season, you're like, oh, well, we can completely scratch even what we were thinking 3-4 weeks ago. It's just kind of how it goes. But nonetheless, that Michigan definitely has the need to really load up at defensive back. And you can move some of these guys around. And you have to keep in mind, it's not just the 2 corners and the 2 safeties. It's also a nickel position. And obviously to have a strong rotation there would behoove them very well, especially because even though they've had some pretty good, they got the 2 best defensive tackles in the country, Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant. They've got Trey Pierce, who's looked really good. It's not like they've brought in a bunch of 4 and 5 stars along the defensive line in the last couple cycles either. They've got guys that look like they could be really good. Excited about Lugard Akipai, but like it's still like a lot to go with there. All right, I spent all this time, and here's our daily Bryce Underwood update. I was on the phone at the Michigan basketball game. I was on the phone when I got home. I was on the phone this morning. So here's what I can say. I have to be as vague as possible with these things at the moment. But it's Michigan's really pulling no punches here. They're really going for broke. And they definitely let him know how much he is wanted on Sunday. Okay, so there's that. They are definitely doing a little bit more of a full court press on him and his family, and I think that it is definitely working. Keep your eyes on the LSU visit as it comes on over the weekend. But if you're around, I know that there's people at Belleville that are pushing to get Michigan fans to come to the game on Friday night. I may be there because I'm not going to the Indiana game. First game I'm missing in 6 years. And they're trying to have a pretty big Michigan contingent to have just the fans letting him know if they can be there or that they want him there rather. So I would say this. My confidence level last night went down significantly, and then it shot up above where it was more significantly today. And that's in part because you hear little pieces of information and it sounds like, well, that doesn't sound good. And then you get more context and you're like, okay, that might actually be amazing. I told a colleague of mine today that I had upped my percentage from where were we? 45%. I upped it to 50-50. And I spoke to my closest source in this situation. And they said that they first said 50-50 and then they changed it to 49-51 with the edge only going to LSU because he's still currently committed. But you get through this weekend without any reaffirmation of commitment. Because again, Michigan's not going to be outbid here. I don't think LSU knows what it's really up against here. And if that holds enough weight, that should at least hold LSU back a little bit. And Michigan still got some work to do. So we'll see as far as that goes. But I know there's a lot of people out there that are just going to look, hear my Bryce Underwood update and say, he's not coming here. He was never coming here. Does he end up at Michigan? I mean, like it's a coin flip at this point. And just because, whether Michigan wins or Michigan doesn't win the recruitment doesn't mean that there isn't serious consideration being given. At some point, whether he comes or doesn't come, I'll tell you everything I knew. So we'll get to that eventually. Yeah, so I think Michigan's in a good spot. I like where Michigan's at. And the only problem is you wish you had another week before that LSU visit. You just wish you had one more week to kind of get some things solidified. And if you could do that, then I would have no doubt that Michigan would be able to overcome LSU's advantage by having him committed. But time is of the essence. So we'll see what happens there. All right, let's talk Michigan basketball, because obviously they were just absolutely spectacular in the 101-53 win over Cleveland State. So let's get to that here in just a moment. But before we do, Locked On Wolverines fans, it's time to recognize the Roy Player of the Week. So far this season, we have pooled over $20,000 to support players on Roy. Micro deposits lead to massive change. With the Roy app, you can direct your support to the athletes you love, ensuring that all funds go to the specific players that you choose. Unlike collectives, you know exactly where your support is going, and you even receive exclusive content like personal videos and updates after the season. The best part, it's risk-free. Almost said it's Rick-free. It's also Rick-free. We don't have any Ricks on this. If the athlete transfers or doesn't deliver the content, you get your money back. This week, I'm supporting Davis Warren. I just pitched $100. I would love for you to join me. Even $10 makes a difference. So let's show Davis Warren the love and keep him connected to Michigan. Remember, pay today, celebrate tomorrow. Your support sets your team up for success. Plus, don't miss out on Roy's exciting giveaway. Win 2 tickets to a game in November. Hey, this month is November. Just download Roy, create an account, and enter the referral code Locked On, and you're entered. Already on Roy, any contribution to an athlete's campaign also gets you entered automatically. No purchase necessary, void or prohibited. Download Roy now and join the NIL game with no subscriptions and no fees. And be sure to check us out on Instagram, Facebook, and X at Roy_return on you for more info. Roy, support the players, change the game. All right, we're going to continue on here in just a moment. Before we do, you know what? You need to get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you placed your original bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, let's continue on here. Michigan on Ken Palm rose up to number 25. I don't know what Cleveland State was. Let's see if I can look that up here. I don't know why. They're 206. It's not like they're like this crazy great team in the Horizon League overall, like right now. But they have been, right? Like they've won 20 games, I think it was, each of the last 3 years. Let's see here if I can figure this out real quick. Of course, I can't do it very quickly, but nonetheless, they were a pretty good team. They were 21-15 last year. See, I can figure it out quickly. Happy learned how to putt. They were 21-14 the year before, and the year before that, they were 20-11. So pretty solid team to be able to just absolutely devastate the way that Michigan did. And devastate them they did. They absolutely annihilated them. Now, I mean, again, Horizon League, right? Like we're talking the same league as Oakland University. That's not exactly any place to, a league that you would really write home about last year. Even when they won 20-something games, they lost like at Youngstown State. They lost to St. Mary's. They lost to Kent State, right? Like they lost to some teams. They did beat Oakland. They did beat Purdue Fort Wayne. I mean, so here's the thing, though. We also lost to Oakland, by the way. But this, not only was I expecting Michigan to win this game more by like a 20-point margin, and the fact that they almost doubled them up at 101-53. This was the most fun that I've had watching Michigan basketball since Juwan's second year? And I would venture to say that I enjoyed watching this team yesterday more than any of the Juwan Howard teams. You have to go back to John Beilein 2018 national championship game. It was probably the last time I had that much fun watching Michigan basketball. it's clear that it's still a work in progress, but man, it's like, it's already kind of there. And this was like everything. I was like, if we didn't do any episodes where we talked about Dusty May expectations or anything like that, but if I was to give them to you yesterday and be like, here's what I want to see, that's basically what we saw. And we saw it in basically the best possible way. So, I mean, that's just absolutely incredible that they were able to do what they were able to do. Let me pull up their box score because there's a couple things I want to touch on that I can't remember straight off the page here. But the fact that they had the second highest free field goal percentage in Michigan basketball history, 68.4, I believe it was. I mean, that is just unbelievable, because it's like, this is what like Juwan Howard promised. And this is what like you always wanted to see from John Beilein teams. I mean, yeah, they could shoot lights out from 3 sometimes. That's not exactly what this was. I mean, they did attempt 18 threes. They were 10 of 18, but they were 39 for 57 just in general. So 55.6% from 3. You take that all day, every day. And 68.4%. I mean, they shot 71.43% in the first half. I mean, it was absolutely bonkers. And they did that without Vlad Golden, who's expected to be the leading scorer of this team, even attempting a shot until just before the under 8 timeout in the second half. He had 2 points, 1 for 1 for 2 points. Danny Wolf was just an absolute beast. He had played 23 minutes. So he actually ended up playing a little bit more than Vlad Golden, which is kind of surprising. I was actually even, because I didn't watch the exhibition games, I was even a little surprised that you saw that the starting lineup was both of them. Because like I knew that Dusty May said like, yeah, we want to play both of them together, but it was kind of more like, yeah, you know, we'll have lineups for that. I thought that maybe you'd see Shetter in the lineup as a starter. I mean, LJ Kayson obviously has kind of maybe worked his way even as a true freshman to be a guy that you could say like maybe they do, you know, go with him. But I mean, there's just a lot that was working there. But he had 19 points, 13 rebounds, led the team on both ends. Just absolutely phenomenal. Hit a 3-point shot as well, 8 for 10 from the field. The only thing that you can say, 5 blocks. 5 turnovers, 3 blocks. That was what I was about to say. Is the only thing you could really criticize was the turnovers. Turnovers were still kind of an issue for this team, and you would have liked to see them be a little bit better as far as that's concerned. But 3 steals also for Danny Wolf. I mean, it's an insane stat line. 13 rebounds, 2 assists, 3 blocks, 3 steals, 19 points, and 5 turnovers. 1 for 1 from the 3-point line. I mean, absolutely phenomenal. Trey Donaldson, it's funny, the Auburn transfer, 16 points, and it felt so quiet. So quiet. I wonder about Roddy Gale because we didn't see him as much in the second half. I don't know if there was an injury or if it was just lineup decisions or whatever that they wanted to go with. And Vlad Golden also had 4 turnovers. So those were the ones that had the massive turnover issues. And it was just kind of not sharp passing. But I mean, just how fast this team played. They had 28 fast break points in the game, and they had 18 of those in the first half. So it really kind of didn't do as much in the second, but they were just like running and gunning. And at first it looked slow and plodding, and it was kind of like not quite getting home. And then they kind of found their stride and just absolutely eviscerated Cleveland State. I mean, and they were pesky on both sides of the floor. And just the fact that they were so run and gun, they still have the wonderful spacing and ball movement that you hoped to see, the John Beilein-esque play, but they just play so much faster. And they get back on defense, and they were not letting anything come easy to the Vikings. I mean, it was just absolutely masterful, and it makes you sit there and say, like, I don't want to overreact to game 1 because I did that last year, and look at how it turned out. But, like, game 1 was like, oh, okay, they're working with something. This is like, welcome to the scene, Michigan. And that's, you know, they're 25 in KenPom, and this is kind of what Dusty May does. You know, he said, you know, hey, you know, I'll give you guys a pass for not being at Chrysler for month 1, but month 2, better pack this thing. I have a feeling that it's going to be because, I mean, that was, especially with football not being as good, I mean, it was about as entertaining and fun, and I was as engaged as I've been watching basketball live in person in a long time. There's just a lot to like. And, I mean, LJ Kayson, Sam Walters, I'm just looking at names, man, and like They were great. The only one that I was kind of like, oh, he kind of looks like what I remember him looking like is Namari Burnett. It felt like a holdover from the Beilein era. But even Will Shedder just like came out and just suddenly was like, oh, I'm on the scene. 15 points for Will Shedder. Went 7 of 9 from the field, 1 or 2 from 3. I mean, this could be an exciting team. And the thing, this was the first game. They looked like a veteran team that's played together, that love each other right now. So we'll see how that goes in the future here. All right, we're going to continue on. Let's just finish up talking a little football expectations against Indiana. Let's do that here in just a moment. But before we do, Z-Biotics pre-alcohol probiotic drink is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. Here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for your rough next day. Pre-alcohol produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. Just remember to make Z-Biotics your first drink of the night. Drink responsibly, and you'll feel your best tomorrow. Now, listen, I can't drink anymore because I'm allergic. But, man, I would have loved to have something like this. Because every time that I drank, I just knew it was bad. But if you can have that pre-alcohol before drinks, you can notice that difference next day. So I won't lie, I was on the fence about pre-alcohol initially, but then just hearing more about it, it's worth it all. It's the real deal. So here's how you use it. You drink the pre-alcohol. For best results, make pre-alcohol your first drink of the night. Step 2, drink responsibly, pace yourself, hydrate, and get a good night's sleep. Step 3, enjoy tomorrow. Wake up feeling refreshed and ready to take on the day. So go to zbiotics.com/LockedOnCollege to learn more and get 15% off your first order when you use LockedOnCollege at checkout. Z-Biotics is backed with 100% money-back guarantee, so if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. Remember to head to zbiotics.com/LockedOnCollege and use the code LockedOnCollege at checkout for 15% off. All right, this is going to be a short segment 3 because my camera battery's doing the thing that it likes to do, where I start it with 3 bars and now it's blinking red saying it's almost dying. I don't know why they do that. That's just lies. So, all right, let's talk a little bit about what, Michigan going into this Indiana game. Indiana is, I think, formidable, and I think it's right up there with Oregon. And I know, they haven't played anybody. Oregon at least had played some teams, right? They played Ohio State. Boise State was no slouch. And, you look at Indiana, they haven't played anybody. Nebraska is probably the closest, and they blew them off the field, unlike how Ohio State handled them. I'm going to stand by. I predict Indiana to beat Ohio State, assuming it's healthy. Curtis Rourke has to be healthy. They have to be relatively healthy in order to do so. And that game is in Columbus the week before the game. I think being the week before the game helps Indiana, of course. But I think Indiana in some ways is it plays a similar style to Oregon, just kind of in a way better than Oregon, believe it or not. And I mean, Kirk Cignetti is on a mission, clearly. And I steal those words from Steve Dace, he said that to me on the phone. So Steve, I will give you credit. But Indiana is on a mission. And I feel like this is maybe the hardest game of the year for Michigan. So I want to prime you for that. That said, Indiana hasn't played athletes on the other side from them on the caliber of what Michigan has, at least defensively. If Michigan is healthy enough, Jerome Moore indicated yesterday that he believes Jair Hill will be back. Michigan absolutely needs that. They need to play within themselves and better than they have. And I think they can, but I think that this is where you see a coaching matters situation. And you hope that this is a game kind of like Wink Martindale had against USC, where it's he figured some things out. He figured out his own mistakes and he got away from it. I think he usually does in game. I think in some ways Wink gets a little bit of a bad rap because you're going from Jesse Minter to Wink Martindale. If you got Wink Martindale coming out of the Rich Rod era, you'd be like, oh my goodness, I absolutely love this guy. Even coming out of the Don Brown era, and I don't think that's necessarily fair to Don Brown because he was really good in 16, 17, 18. And then at the last game in 18, last 2 games in 18, things started kind of falling apart. But I think Wink has got a lot more going on, but I do think there's still some hubris. And I still think that there's a lot that he needs to humble himself on when it comes to college game. Because it seems like he has uneven halves even sometimes. I think he makes great adjustments sometimes, and it does, you look at the Oregon game. I know Oregon ended up getting the touchdown late to put the game away, but they really, Michigan's defense did a really good job in the second half. You look at the Texas game, they were able to do some pretty good things in the second half against Texas. You can say Texas called the dogs off. People inside Schembechler Hall will tell you that's not the case, but still, I mean, regardless, Texas would have run that score up if it could, and it didn't. It wasn't able to. So part of it depends on health for Michigan. Defensively and offensively, I mean, you just got to go back to the running the ball roots. You got to be a run first team, and I don't feel like that's what this team is right now. And you need Davis Warren to take the pressure off of it, which might mean passing on the first downs and stuff like that. But you got to self-scout. I've seen plenty of people out there. Scott Bell has a nice little chart of talking about the predictability of second downs after an incomplete pass or a short gain pass. You just got to be more unpredictable, but you also have to be smart. And when you have the ball on the 50-yard line and running is your bread and butter, don't go for 3 straight passes that don't end up going anywhere. When you could have cut that game to what? It would have been 14-10, I think, at that time. Maybe it was 21-10. I don't remember exactly. I think it was 14-10. So, I mean, you just have to be smarter with your play calling on both sides of the ball. Will they be smarter? I don't know. But you've got to feel like if you're those coaches, you're starting to coach for your job at this point as far as the assistants. And I know that's kind of insane to say, as much as fans want to sit there and say that that's the case. Just thinking from the mentality of people inside that building, that's generally not. But I do think that it might be to some degree, more so for Kirk than it is for Wink. You've got to figure some things out, and you've got to put your best foot forward. I think it's too little too late probably, but you've got to put a better foot forward than what you have, and just be smarter when it comes to the play calling. Sometimes I will still continue to say, sometimes Kirk Campbell has had some wonderful play calls that don't get executed, but then he follows those up with the boneheaded ones like what we saw in the 4th and 5 in the gotta have it. Let's run Alex Orgy into the camera crane. Like, that doesn't make any sense to me. Okay, so that's going to do it for this episode. We will be back on Wednesday as we continue to preview Michigan at Indiana. Thanks for watching. Thank you for listening. We'll talk to you again soon. Peace.